I still remember the exact moment my world shattered into a million pieces. Standing in my kitchen in suburban Connecticut, clutching my phone with the wedding venue booklet in my other hand, excited to help plan my only son, Tyler's big day. "Hey, honey, when should we start shopping for my mother of the groom dress?" The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came those 5 words that cut through me like a knife. Mom. The wedding already happened. 3 weeks ago, my son and his fiancée, Madison, had gotten married at the courthouse with only her family present. My family, who had raised him alone after his father abandoned us, who had worked 3 jobs to put him through college, wasn't even told, let alone invited. What I discovered next about my daughter-in-law's manipulation would change everything. Y'all aren't ready for this one. Tyler had always been my pride and joy. After his father walked out when Tyler was just 7 years old, it was just the 2 of us against the world in our small apartment in Boston's North End. I worked as a nurse at Massachusetts General during the day, waitressed evenings at a local Italian restaurant, and did medical transcription on weekends, all to make sure my boy had everything he needed, and Tyler made every sacrifice worth it. Honor student, basketball team captain, and eventually accepted to Northeastern University on a partial scholarship. I still took out loans to cover the rest, putting myself in debt that I'm still paying off at 56 years old. But I never regretted it for a second. That's what mothers do. When Tyler graduated and landed a job at a tech startup in Hartford, I couldn't have been prouder. He bought a small condo downtown, called me every Sunday like clockwork, and came home for every holiday. The perfect son. Then, 2 years ago, he met Madison Williams at a conference in Chicago. She was beautiful, ambitious, and worked for a competing tech firm. Their relationship moved quickly. Too quickly, if I'm being honest. 6 months in, they were already talking about marriage. Something about Madison always felt off to me, but I kept my concerns to myself. "As long as you're happy, I'm happy," I told Tyler, even as alarm bells rang in the back of my mind. Last Thanksgiving, Tyler proposed to Madison right at my dining table. She cried, I cried. We all celebrated with champagne I'd been saving for a special occasion. Madison immediately pulled out her phone and started showing me Pinterest boards she'd created for her dream wedding. "We're thinking next June," she gushed, talking about venues in the Berkshires that cost more than my annual salary. I nodded along, secretly wondering how they could afford such extravagance, but figured they must be doing better financially than I realized. When I offered to contribute what little savings I had, Madison patted my hand condescendingly. "That's sweet, Barbara, but we've got it covered." That should have been my first red flag, but there were so many more to come. The wedding planning seemed to be moving along just fine through the winter. Madison had created a family group chat where she'd occasionally share photos of dresses or flower arrangements, asking for opinions. I'd offer mine, only to be subtly shot down or ignored. Still, I was just happy to be included. Around February, things started getting weird. Tyler's calls became less frequent, and when we did talk, Madison was always there, hovering in the background. He seemed tense, choosing his words carefully, like he was walking on eggshells. One Sunday in March, Tyler called and sounded more like himself. Madison was visiting her parents in Chicago, and we had a great conversation catching up on everything. When I asked about the wedding plans, his voice changed. "About that, Mom. Madison thinks we should scale back a bit. The Berkshires venue fell through." "Oh no, what happened?" "Just complications with the deposit. We're looking at some more affordable options now." I offered again to help financially, and Tyler's voice cracked a little. "That's really nice, Mom, but no. We'll figure it out." Before hanging up, I mentioned I'd found a beautiful mother-of-the-groom dress on sale at Macy's. "Should I go ahead and buy it? Or wait until you guys finalize the date?" There was a long pause. "Maybe wait," he said, "just to be sure." 2 days later, I got a text from Madison. "Barbara, would you mind not stressing Tyler out about wedding stuff? He's really busy at work right now, and your constant questions are adding pressure." I was stunned. Constant questions? I had barely brought it up. I apologized anyway, not wanting to create problems. The following week, I tried calling Tyler 3 times. He didn't pick up. Finally, he texted, "Sorry, Mom. Crazy busy. We'll call this weekend." When the weekend came and went without a call, I started to worry. This wasn't like my son at all. I called my sister Susan in Albany. "Something's wrong with Tyler. He's not himself lately." "It's that Madison girl," Susan said immediately. I never trusted her. Too polished, too perfect. Nobody's that perfect unless they're hiding something. I defended Madison out of loyalty to Tyler. But deep down, I was beginning to wonder if Susan was right. April arrived and I still hadn't heard much from Tyler. The wedding was supposedly planned for June, just 2 months away. But I had no details about the venue, the time, or what I should wear. My texts asking for updates were met with vague responses or none at all. I decided to drive down to Hartford one Friday after my shift ended early. I'd surprise Tyler with some homemade lasagna, his favorite, and maybe finally get some straight answers about the wedding plans. I pulled up to his condo building around 6 p.m. and used the key he'd given me years ago to get into the lobby. As I approached his door, I heard voices inside. Tyler and Madison having what sounded like an intense conversation. I hesitated, not wanting to interrupt an argument. But then I heard my name. "Your mom is going to flip out when she finds out," Madison was saying. "She doesn't need to know yet," Tyler replied, his voice strained. "We'll tell her after everything's finalized." Why are you so scared of her reaction? It's our life, not hers." "I'm not scared, I know how much this would mean to her. And I feel bad that what? That we're doing what we want instead of what she wants? Tyler, you need to cut the cord already. This is exactly why we did it this way." "Did what way?" I stood frozen, the lasagna getting heavy in my arms. "I know," Tyler sighed. "You're right. I just wish." "Wish what? That we'd let her take over our wedding like she tries to take over everything else in your life? No thanks. My parents paid for everything. It was beautiful. And it's done. Your mom will just have to deal." I nearly dropped the lasagna. Wedding? Done? What was she talking about? I should have knocked right then. Should have demanded answers. Instead, I quietly backed away, made it to my car, and sat there shaking for 10 minutes before I could even drive. Had my son gotten married without telling me? Without inviting me? It couldn't be possible. Tyler wouldn't do that to me. There had to be some misunderstanding. I drove to a nearby Courtyard Marriott in a daze and checked in for the night. I couldn't go home, couldn't process what I'd heard. I barely slept, and when I did, I had nightmares of standing outside a church, pounding on locked doors while my son's wedding went on without me inside. The next morning, I called my sister again, sobbing, as I told her what I'd overheard. "Those sneaky little..." Susan didn't finish the sentence. "Barb, you need to confront him. Now. What if I misunderstood? What if they were talking about something else? Like what? What else could my parents paid for everything? It was beautiful, and it's done. Possibly mean. Call him. Now." I checked out of the hotel Saturday morning and drove back to Boston in a fog. I couldn't confront Tyler yet. I needed evidence first. If I was wrong, I'd look paranoid and push him even further away. Back home, I opened my laptop and went straight to social media. I rarely used Facebook, but I knew Madison was active on multiple platforms. Sure enough, when I searched for her Instagram account, I found it easily. Maddie Williams 29. Her profile was public. I scrolled through recent posts, seeing nothing unusual. Just the typical filtered photos of coffee shops, skylines, and selfies with friends. But then from 3 weeks ago, I saw a post that made my heart stop. It was Madison in a white dress, a wedding dress, simple and elegant, standing next to Tyler in a gray suit with a small white rose boutonniere. They were on the steps of what looked like a courthouse, surrounded by a small group, all people I didn't recognize, except for an older couple I assumed were Madison's parents. The caption read, "Made it official. Just us and the people who matter most. Perfect day for a perfect beginning. Just married. Share courthouse. Intimate. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of my desk so hard my knuckles turned white. The comments below were full of congratulations, including several from Madison's mother. Most beautiful courthouse wedding ever. So glad we could be there for your special day. I clicked through to Madison's mother's profile, and there were more photos. Tyler cutting a small cake, the couple exchanging rings. Madison's father making a toast at what looked like a restaurant reception afterward. My son's wedding. My only child had gotten married, and I didn't even know it happened. I picked up my phone with trembling hands and called Tyler. It went straight to voicemail. I called again. Same result. I sent a text. Tyler, I need to talk to you. It's important. Please call me as soon as you can. An hour passed. No response. I couldn't sit still. Couldn't eat. Couldn't think straight. I called again. Voicemail again. Finally, I sent another text. Tyler, I know about the wedding. Please just talk to me. 3 dots appeared immediately. He was typing. Then they disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally. Mom, I can explain. We wanted to keep it simple. Simple? Simple? Not inviting your own mother is simple? I didn't trust myself to text back without saying something I'd regret. Instead, I called Susan again. You were right, I said when she answered. They got married 3 weeks ago. At a courthouse. Madison's parents were there. I wasn't even told. Oh, Bob. Susan's voice was soft with shock. I'm so sorry. I don't understand, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. What did I do wrong? Why wouldn't he want me there? This isn't about you, Susan said firmly. This is about that woman controlling him. You need to find out exactly what happened. And you need to stay calm when you do. Or she wins. Stay calm? How could I possibly stay calm? My heart wasn't just broken. It was obliterated. Sunday morning, my phone rang at 7:30 a.m. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. I answered immediately, my heart pounding. Mom, he said, his voice small. Can we talk? I think we need to, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm in Boston. I drove up last night. Can I come over? I was surprised he'd come all this way. Of course. 30 minutes later, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find my son looking exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes. For a moment, all I saw was my little boy, and I wanted to pull him into my arms. But the pain was still too raw. Come in, I said instead, stepping aside. Tyler sat on the couch, the same one where he'd spent countless afternoons doing homework while I prepared dinner. He couldn't meet my eyes. Is Madison with you? I asked. No, she doesn't know I'm here. That was telling. Mom, I'm sorry, he began. I know you're hurt and confused, and you have every right to be. Why, Tyler? My voice cracked. Why wouldn't you want me at your wedding? He looked up then, his eyes red-rimmed. It wasn't like that. It wasn't that I didn't want you there. Then what was it like? Because from where I'm standing, my only child got married and deliberately excluded me from one of the most important days of his life. Tyler ran his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. It was all so complicated. Madison and I were arguing about the wedding plans. The Berkshires venue was going to cost a fortune, and I was stressed about how we'd pay for it. Madison's parents offered to cover everything, but they had conditions. Conditions? They wanted it to be a big society event. Madison's dad is on the board of some financial company, and they wanted to invite all these business associates. It was turning into this huge production that neither of us wanted. So you decided to elope instead. That still doesn't explain why you couldn't tell me. Tyler looked miserable. We were going to, but then Madison suggested just doing a quick courthouse thing with her parents, as witnesses, and then having a bigger reception later that everyone could attend. And you agreed to that? I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. I didn't realize... I thought her parents were just going to be the legal witnesses. But then her mom invited Madison's sister and brother, and her grandparents. And suddenly, it was this whole family thing for them, and his voice trailed off. And no one from your family, I finished for him. Mom, I messed up. I know I did. When I realized what was happening, I tried to call you, but Madison said it would be cruel to call you last minute when you couldn't possibly make it in time. And you believed that? I asked incredulously. Tyler, I would have dropped everything. I would have driven all night. I would have found a way to be there. He hung his head. I know that now. But Madison made it seem like it would be more hurtful to tell you with no notice than to just go through with it and tell you after. And then once it was done, I couldn't figure out how to tell you without you being devastated. So, your solution was to just never tell me? Let me keep asking about wedding plans that weren't happening? No, we were going to tell you. Madison wanted to wait until after we figured out the reception plans. She thought it would be easier if we could say, we got legally married, but the real celebration is still coming. And when exactly was this real celebration supposed to happen? Tyler looked away. That's the other thing. Madison's parents spent a lot on the dinner after the courthouse ceremony. More than we expected. They've been saying we should wait a year or so before doing anything else. The pieces were falling into place. So there was never going to be another wedding. No chance for your family to celebrate with you. No mother-son dance. Nothing. Mom, I'm so sorry. I got caught up in everything and made a terrible mistake. I felt sick about it ever since. I could see the genuine remorse in his eyes, but the betrayal cut too deep. Where is Madison now? Why isn't she here apologizing too? Tyler's expression changed slightly. She doesn't exactly feel like she has anything to apologize for. She says it was our wedding, our choice. Is that what you believe too? He hesitated too long before answering. I don't know what I believe anymore. I just know I hurt you terribly, and I'll never forgive myself for that. I took a deep breath. Tyler, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Was keeping me away from your wedding your idea, or Madison's? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Chapter 6, The Revelation. That night after Tyler left, promising to come back the next day for a longer conversation, I couldn't sleep. Something still wasn't adding up. The son I'd raised would never have excluded me from his wedding, unless there was more to the story than he was telling me. I did something I'd never done before. I looked through my old emails from Madison. There weren't many. She preferred texting. But last Christmas, she'd sent a thank you note for the cashmere scarf I'd given her. I found it and clicked on her email address, then searched for any other communications from that address. There it was, an email from 6 months ago that I'd somehow missed. The subject line read, Wedding Planning Thoughts. It had gone to my spam folder, and I'd never seen it. With shaking hands, I opened it. Barbara, Tyler and I have been discussing our wedding plans, and we wanted to get your input. We're considering a small ceremony, possibly even a courthouse wedding, followed by an intimate dinner. Nothing extravagant, just close family. I know this might not be the wedding you envisioned for your son, but we're trying to be practical about finances and stress levels. Please let me know your thoughts. We value your opinion. Madison. I stared at the screen in disbelief. She had reached out to me 6 months ago, and I'd never responded because the email went to spam. Had she thought I was ignoring her, dismissing their plans? Is that why they proceeded without me? I immediately forwarded the email to myself and took screenshots as evidence. Then I wrote back, Madison, I just found this email in my spam folder. I never saw it until tonight, 6 months later. I had no idea you'd reached out about wedding plans. I would never have ignored this. Please call me when you can. Barbara. Within minutes, my phone rang. It wasn't Madison. It was Tyler. Mom, what email are you talking about? What did you find? Madison sent me an email 6 months ago about having a courthouse wedding. I never saw it because it went to spam. Did she tell you she'd emailed me? There was a long pause. No, he finally said. She told me she'd talked to you about a smaller wedding, and you'd shot down the idea completely. She said you were insistent on a traditional ceremony. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. Tyler, that never happened. We never had that conversation. Are you sure? She was so specific about it. She said you told her that no son of yours was getting married at a courthouse like some shotgun wedding. Those words never came out of my mouth. I was nearly shouting now. Tyler, I'm looking at her email right now. She asked for my input. I never gave any because I never saw this. Let me see it, he said, his voice suddenly hard. Can you forward it to me? I did, and the line went silent as he read it. Tyler, I finally prompted. I need to go, he said, his voice strained. I'll call you tomorrow. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in shock. What had just happened? I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing with questions. Had Madison deliberately lied to Tyler about my reaction? Had she used my apparent rejection of their courthouse plans as an excuse to exclude me? But why? What possible reason could she have for driving a wedge between Tyler and me? The next morning, I had my answer. Chapter 7, The Betrayal. My doorbell rang at 8 a.m. I opened it to find Tyler standing there, looking like he hadn't slept either. But there was something different in his expression, a hardness I'd never seen before. Can I come in? He asked. I nodded, stepping aside. He walked straight to my dining table and set down a folder. I need to show you something, he said, his voice tight with controlled anger. But it wasn't directed at me. He opened the folder and spread out several documents. Bank statements, account information, legal papers. Do you remember Grandpa Joe's investment account? He asked. Of course I did. My father had been a shrewd investor, building a modest portfolio over his lifetime. When he died 10 years ago, he'd left the account to Tyler in a trust that would mature when Tyler turned 30 or got married, whichever came first. The account had been worth about $180,000 then. Not a fortune, but a nice nest egg for Tyler's future. Yes, I said. What about it? Did you know it's now worth over $400,000? The tech stocks Grandpa picked exploded in value. I hadn't known the exact amount, as I wasn't the trustee. My father's attorney was, but I wasn't entirely surprised. Your grandfather was always good with money. And did you know that Madison somehow found out about this account within 2 months of dating me? That surprised me. How? She works in fintech. She has ways of accessing financial information that most people don't. But that's not the point. Tyler's jaw was clenched tight. The point is, she's known all along about this trust that would be released to me upon marriage. I started to understand. And the courthouse wedding was 2 days after my 30th birthday, Tyler finished. Which means, either way, by age or by marriage, the trust became mine that week. Oh, Tyler, I whispered. It gets worse, he said grimly. After I left here yesterday, I confronted Madison about the email she sent you. At first, she denied sending it at all. When I showed her the evidence, she claimed she'd followed up with you by phone, and you'd been dismissive. That never happened. I know that now, Tyler said. But what I didn't know until last night was that Madison has been systematically lying to me about you for months. She deleted texts you sent me. She told me you'd said things you never said. And worst of all, his voice broke slightly. She convinced me that you were trying to control our wedding because you've never approved of her. I reached across the table and took his hand. Tyler, I know, Mom. I know that now. He squeezed my hand, then pulled away to continue. Last night after we talked, I checked our joint account. $300,000 is gone, transferred to an account in her name only last week. I gasped. She took your inheritance? Most of it. And when I confronted her, you know what she said? She said it was her right as my wife, that she'd earned it by putting up with my overbearing mother for 2 years. He laughed bitterly. Then she admitted everything. How she'd researched me before we even met at that conference. How she'd targeted me specifically because of Grandpa's trust. The courthouse wedding was her idea from the start. Quick, legal, and timed perfectly for when the money would be released. And keeping me away? She knew you'd see through her. She knew you'd ask questions, notice things I was too blind to see. So she had to make sure you weren't there. I felt sick. This woman had manipulated my son, stolen his inheritance, and deliberately destroyed our relationship. All for money. What are you going to do? I asked quietly. Tyler straightened his shoulders. I've already done it. I called Grandpa's attorney at 6 a.m. We've frozen the remaining funds and initiated fraud proceedings. I've filed for an annulment on grounds of fraud and misrepresentation. And I've moved out. I spent last night at a hotel. Oh, Tyler. Despite everything, my heart broke for him. To be betrayed so completely by someone you loved. Don't feel sorry for me, Mom, he said, reading my expression. I was an idiot. I fell for her act completely. I chose her over my own mother. You were in love, I said gently. We all make mistakes when we're in love. Tyler shook his head. This was more than a mistake. I let her come between us. I missed all the red flags because I didn't want to see them. What red flags, honey? And then it all came pouring out. All the things he'd noticed, but dismissed. How Madison always seemed to know his account balances. How she'd accidentally found the trust paperwork in his desk drawer. How she'd pushed for marriage right around his 30th birthday. How she'd started talking about buying a vacation home in Florida immediately after the wedding. I was so blind, he finished, putting his head in his hands. We both were, I said. But now we see clearly, and we'll handle this together. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Tyler moved back to Boston temporarily, taking a small apartment near mine, while the legal proceedings with Madison unfolded. It turned out that Madison had covered her tracks well. The money she had transferred was already gone from her personal account, moved offshore to make it harder to trace. Grandpa Joe's attorney, Mr. Feldman, was furious when he learned what had happened. This is classic fraud, he told us during a meeting at his downtown office. She married you under false pretenses specifically to gain access to the trust. We can prove intent. The legal battle would be complicated, but Tyler was determined to see it through. It's not even about the money anymore, he told me as we walked out of Mr. Feldman's office. It's about justice, about not letting her get away with this. I was proud of him for fighting back, but I worried about the toll it was taking. Tyler had lost weight, wasn't sleeping well, and oscillated between anger and profound sadness. He'd lost both his wife and his trust in his own judgment all at once. One evening, as we sat on my porch drinking iced tea, Tyler turned to me with tears in his eyes. I keep thinking about what you must have felt when you found out about the wedding. When you realized I'd gotten married without you there. I took his hand. It was the worst pain I've ever felt, I admitted. Worse than when your father left. Worse than when Grandpa died. Because those losses weren't choices. You chose to exclude me from your wedding. I didn't, though, he said miserably. Not really. Madison manipulated everything. Made decisions that looked like they came from both of us. I know that now, I assured him. But Tyler, at some point, you did choose to believe her over me, to trust her version of events without checking with me first. He nodded slowly. I've been thinking about that a lot. Why I was so easily manipulated. And I think I was trying to prove something. That I could build a life separate from you. That I could be independent. You don't have to cut me out to be independent, I said softly. I know that now. But Madison played on that insecurity. Made me feel like maintaining our close relationship somehow made me less of a man. He shook his head. It sounds so stupid saying it out loud. It's not stupid. It's human. We all have vulnerabilities that can be exploited by the wrong person. I squeezed his hand. But we're going to get through this. Together. Tyler managed a small smile. I don't deserve your forgiveness. It's not about deserving, I told him. It's about love. And I've loved you since before you took your first breath. That doesn't stop because you made a mistake. For the first time since this whole ordeal began, Tyler broke down completely. I held my 30-year-old son as he sobbed in my arms, just as I had when he was a little boy with skin knees or a broken heart. Some things never change, even when everything else does. Chapter 9. The Recovery. Summer turned to fall, and the legal proceedings against Madison dragged on. Her parents had hired expensive attorneys who were fighting the annulment and fraud claims aggressively. It seemed they had known about their daughter's scheme all along, possibly even helped plan it. Meanwhile, Tyler was slowly rebuilding his life. He'd taken a leave of absence from his job in Hartford and found temporary work at a tech startup in Boston. Being around old friends and family was helping him heal. One crisp October Saturday, Tyler and I were clearing out the last of his things from a storage unit where he'd kept some items from his condo. Madison had been ordered by the court not to dispose of any property until the case was resolved, but Tyler didn't trust her not to damage sentimental items. As we sorted through boxes, Tyler pulled out a small leather album. "What's that?" I asked, setting down the box of books I'd been carrying. "Photos from college graduation," he said, opening it. "Look at us." The picture showed the two of us beaming at the camera, Tyler in his cap and gown, me standing beside him bursting with pride. My arm was around his waist and his was around my shoulders. "We look happy," I said, smiling at the memory. We were. Tyler flipped through more pages. Family holidays, birthdays, vacations. "You know what I realized? There's not a single important moment in my life that you weren't part of. Until the wedding. We can't change that now," I said gently. "No, but we can make sure it never happens again." Tyler closed the album and looked at me seriously. "Mom, I'm sorry. Not just for the wedding, but for everything. For letting Madison come between us. For not seeing what was happening. You've already apologized, Tyler. Multiple times. I know, but I need you to really hear this. I've been doing a lot of thinking about why I was so susceptible to Madison's manipulation, and I realized it goes back to Dad leaving. This surprised me. What do you mean? Tyler sat on a nearby box. When Dad walked out, I think part of me always believed it was because I wasn't enough reason for him to stay. That if I'd been a better son somehow, he wouldn't have left. Tyler, no! He held up a hand. Let me finish. I know logically that's not true. Dad left because of his own issues, not because of anything I did or didn't do. But that insecurity was always there, under the surface, and Madison somehow sensed it and used it against me. I sat beside him. How? She'd say things like, "Your mom is so controlling because she's afraid of losing you like she lost your dad." Or, "You need to prove you're not going to abandon her like your father did." She made me feel guilty for having a close relationship with you, like it was somehow unhealthy. I felt a surge of anger toward Madison. That's manipulation at its worst. "I know that now," Tyler said. "But at the time it sounded reasonable, like she was looking out for both of us." He shook his head. "She was so good at twisting things, making me doubt my own perceptions. That's what abusers do," I said quietly. "And make no mistake, Tyler. What she did was emotional abuse." He nodded slowly. "I've been seeing a therapist, Dr. Goldstein. She's helping me understand how I got caught in Madison's web and how to make sure it never happens again." I felt a rush of relief and pride. My son was facing this head-on, doing the hard work of healing. "I'm proud of you," I told him. "So proud." Tyler smiled. A real smile, one I hadn't seen in months. "There's something else I wanted to talk to you about. The lawsuit might take years to resolve. I might never get all the money back." "Money can be replaced," I said. "You can't. That's just it. I've been so focused on what I lost. The money, my marriage, my home. But I almost lost something much more valuable." He took my hand. "I almost lost you, Mom. And no amount of money is worth that." In that dusty storage unit, surrounded by the physical remnants of my son's betrayal, I felt the first real healing begin. The wound would always leave a scar, but wounds do heal, given time and care. 1 year later, the bell above the door of Cornerstone Cafe jingled as I pushed it open, stepping in from the December cold. The small coffee shop was decorated for Christmas, with twinkling lights and garlands draped along the counter. I spotted Tyler immediately, sitting at our usual table by the window, 2 steaming mugs already waiting. "Sorry I'm late," I said, unwinding my scarf. "Traffic on Storrow Drive was a nightmare." "No worries," Tyler said, sliding a mug toward me. "Peppermint mocha, extra whip." I smiled. "You remembered." "Of course." Tyler looked good, healthy, rested, with a lightness about him that had been missing for too long. "How was your shift?" I'd recently cut back to part-time at the hospital, using some of my saved vacation days to ease toward retirement. "Quiet, thankfully. Everyone's trying to stay healthy for the holidays." We chatted about ordinary things. My sister Susan's planned visit for Christmas, Tyler's recent promotion at the Boston tech company, where his temporary position had become permanent, the snowstorm forecast for the weekend. Normal mother-son conversation, precious in its ordinariness. After a while, Tyler straightened slightly. "I have news. Good news, I hope." He nodded. "The case is settled." I set down my mug. "Really? After all this time?" "Mr. Feldman called this morning. Madison's parents finally pressured her to settle. They were tired of the legal fees and the publicity. The case had attracted some attention in the financial press as a cautionary tale about fraud and marriage." "How much did you recover?" I asked. "About 60% of the original amount. The rest is gone. Spent or hidden where even the forensic accountants couldn't trace it." Tyler shrugged. "But I'm okay with that. It's enough to be free of her." The annulment had been granted 6 months earlier on grounds of fraud, legally erasing the marriage. Madison had moved back to Chicago, apparently already involved with another tech executive. "I'm glad it's over," I said sincerely. Chapter 10, The New Beginning, continued. "Me too," Tyler said, taking a sip of his coffee. "And there's something else I wanted to talk to you about." He reached into his messenger bag and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table to me. "What's this?" I asked, picking it up. "Open it." Inside was a formal invitation, elegantly designed with silver embossing on cream cardstock. "You are cordially invited to celebrate the reclaiming of joy and family. A vow renewal and family celebration, honoring Barbara Mitchell for her strength, sacrifice, and unwavering love. December 24th, 7:00 p.m. The Harborview Hotel, Boston. Hosted by Tyler Mitchell." I looked up, confused. "A vow renewal? But I'm not married." Tyler smiled. "Not that kind of vow. This is about renewing our vow as family. Mom, you gave up everything for me. Your time, your energy, your financial security. You never broke your promise to be there for me, even when I broke mine to you." My eyes filled with tears. "Tyler, you don't have to do this. I want to," he said firmly. "I've reserved the ballroom at the Harborview. Susan's already helping plan it. We're inviting everyone. Your colleagues from the hospital, our extended family, my friends who've known you since childhood. It's going to be the celebration we should have had a year ago." But why Christmas Eve?" "Because that's always been our special time. Just the two of us, even after Dad left. Remember how we'd make those ridiculous gingerbread houses that always collapsed?" I laughed through my tears. "And watch It's a Wonderful Life every year, even though you claim to hate it." "I never hated it," Tyler admitted with a grin. "I just like complaining about it." I looked down at the invitation again, running my finger over the embossed lettering. "This is the sweetest thing anyone has ever done for me." "There's one more thing," Tyler said, his expression growing serious. "Part of the settlement money, I've put it in a trust. For you. Tyler, no. That's your inheritance. And I'm choosing what to do with it. Mom, you worked 3 jobs to put me through college. You're still paying off those loans. Meanwhile, I'm doing great financially now, even without Grandpa's full trust. My new job pays better than the one in Hartford ever did. But, no buts," he said firmly. "The trust will pay off your remaining debt and provide you with a monthly income, enough that you can fully retire in a few years if you want to." I was speechless. After a lifetime of financial struggle, the idea of security was almost impossible to grasp. You don't have to decide anything now, Tyler continued. But the paperwork is done. Mr. Feldman handled it all. I don't know what to say, I finally managed. Say you'll let me do this one thing for you, after everything you've done for me. Tyler reached across the table and took my hand. Say you'll let me honor the most important person in my life properly. How could I refuse? After everything we'd been through, this gesture represented so much more than money. It was healing, redemption, a new beginning. Yes, I said simply. Thank you. Tyler smiled, relief evident on his face. Now, about the celebration. Susan thinks we should have a mother-son dance. I groaned. Tyler, you know I can't dance. Exactly why it'll be so entertaining for everyone else. He grinned. Come on, Mom. It's time we created some new traditions. As we sat there planning, snow began to fall outside the cafe window, dusting the street with white. A year ago, I'd been devastated, thinking I'd lost my only child to a woman who'd deliberately driven us apart. Now we were closer than ever, our bond tested and proven unbreakable. Madison had taken many things: money, trust, innocence. But in the end, she'd failed to take what mattered most: the love between a mother and her son. Some bonds can be strained, even damaged, but never truly broken. And as I looked at Tyler across the table, animated and happy as he described his plans for our celebration, I realized something profound. Sometimes the most painful betrayals lead to the most beautiful renewals. Sometimes you have to lose something to truly understand its value. Sometimes the ending of one story is simply the beginning of a better one. The Harborview Hotel Ballroom was transformed for Christmas Eve, with thousands of twinkling lights and centerpieces of evergreen and holly. I stood near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived, still somewhat in shock that all these people had come to celebrate with us. My nurse friends from Mass General, cousins from Albany, neighbors I'd known for decades, all dressed in their holiday best, all here because Tyler had insisted on celebrating the woman who'd raised him alone. Susan appeared at my elbow, resplendent in emerald green. Stop looking so surprised that people showed up, she whispered. Everyone loves you, Barb. I'm not used to being the center of attention, I admitted. Well, get used to it. Tonight is all about you. She handed me a glass of champagne. Tyler's looking for you, by the way. Something about a surprise. I found my son near the small stage where a jazz quartet was playing Christmas standards. He was handsome in a charcoal suit, looking more confident than I'd seen him in years. There you are, he said, taking my hand. Come with me. He led me to the center of the dance floor as the band finished their song. The room gradually quieted as Tyler took a microphone from the band leader. Thank you all for coming tonight, he began, his voice carrying across the now silent room. A year ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I allowed someone to come between me and the person who has always been my rock, my champion, my home. He turned to face me directly. Mom, you taught me what unconditional love means, not by saying it, but by living it every single day. When I faltered, you were there. When I failed, you helped me stand again. When I broke your heart, his voice caught slightly. You forgave me before I even asked. Tears streamed down my face as Tyler continued. Tonight, in front of everyone who loves you, I want to make a promise. I promise to honor your sacrifices by living a life worthy of them. I promise to never again take for granted the blessing of having you as my mother. And I promise that no matter what life brings, we will face it together. He handed me a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver locket. When I opened it, I found a tiny photo of Tyler as a baby on one side and a recent picture of the two of us on the other. Past and present, Tyler explained. A reminder that some bonds last a lifetime. As he fastened the locket around my neck, the band began playing What a Wonderful World. Tyler extended his hand. May I have this dance? And there, surrounded by everyone we loved, We danced. Not gracefully. We stepped on each other's toes more than once, but perfectly in our imperfection. As we swayed to the music, Tyler whispered, "I'm the luckiest son in the world." I shook my head, smiling through my tears. "And I'm the luckiest mother." Sometimes the greatest gifts come after the deepest pain. Sometimes betrayal leads to redemption. And sometimes when you think your story has ended, you discover it's only just beginning. The truth is, there's no wedding day, no single event that defines a family. It's the 1,000 small moments of love, the choices we make every day to show up for each other, the forgiveness we offer when we fall short. Those are the real vows. And tonight, those were the ones we renewed. If this story touched your heart, drop a like and share where you're reading from. Have you ever experienced betrayal that ultimately led to something better? Let me know in the comments below.